Welcome to English Storytelling Podcast, where we explore stories of love, destiny, and the choices that define our lives. I'm Melody, and today, I bring you a heartfelt tale about two souls who found each other, lost each other, and discovered what it truly means to love. This is the story of a love that lasts. Let me introduce you to my characters. Luca, a thoughtful and introspective man, who finds comfort in quiet corners of the world, especially in a small cafe, where he spends his afternoons reading. He believes in the magic of chance encounters, but struggles with the weight of his own ambitions. Evelyn, a woman who carries the beauty of the seasons within her, with deep brown eyes and a quiet strength. She collects fleeting moments in her notebook, believing that life is made up of choices rather than fate. Their story begins on an autumn afternoon, when a fallen notebook brings them together. As they share coffee, conversations, and walks by the lake, a connection grows between them. One that feels both inevitable and fragile. But when Luca is given an opportunity to leave, he must choose between the path ahead and the love he might be leaving behind. Years pass. Time and distance pull them apart. Yet something unspoken lingers. When Luca returns, he finds Evelyn in the same cafe, with the same notebook. But this time, their story is no longer unfinished. Join me as we unfold a tale of love that withstands time. A love that asks the question, if two hearts are meant to find each other, will they always find their way back? Luca met Evelyn on an autumn afternoon, just as the first chilly breeze swept through the city. He was sitting in a small cafe next to the library, where he often went to read. It was his usual spot, a quiet space amidst the city's chaos. But today, something felt different. Evelyn walked in, bringing with her a cool breeze and a faint scent of pine wood. She found a seat by the window, placed her canvas bag on the chair beside her, and took out a small notebook. Luca didn't know why, but he couldn't take his eyes off her. There was something familiar about her, even though he was certain they had never met before. When Evelyn stood up to order coffee, her notebook accidentally fell to the floor. Luca quickly stepped forward, picked it up, and handed it to her.
You dropped this.
Evelyn looked up at him, her deep brown eyes warm.
Thank you.
Luca noticed that her voice matched her appearance. Gentle yet profound. He smiled.
Do you keep a journal?
She hesitated for a moment before nodding.
It's more like scattered thoughts. Just little things I write down.
I write too, but I usually just write and never read them again.
That means you're writing for the version of yourself in that moment, not for the future.
Luca had never thought of it that way before. But she was right. They started seeing each other more often. Sometimes by chance at the cafe. Other times through planned meetups. Luca liked how Evelyn always carried a notebook, writing whenever inspiration struck. Evelyn, on the other hand, admired Luca's way of looking at life. Calm, slow, but deeply thoughtful. One evening, as they strolled around the lake at sunset, Luca asked,
Do you believe in destiny?
Evelyn tilted her head slightly.
Not really. I think it's more about our choices.
So, if one day we stop seeing each other, would that be fate or choice?
She was silent for a moment.
Maybe both. But if we're important enough to each other, we'll always find a way back.
But life is never as simple as conversations over coffee. When Luca received an opportunity to work abroad, he hesitated for a long time. He and Evelyn had never discussed the future, but he knew that if he left, things between them would change. He sat across from her in their usual cafe, his coffee growing cold with time.
You're leaving, aren't you?
Evelyn asked, her voice calm, but her eyes were not. Luca nodded.
I don't know what to do.
Evelyn looked at him, as if trying to memorize every detail of his face.
You should do what's best for you.
But what about you?
Luca asked, his voice tight. Evelyn smiled, the saddest smile he had ever seen.
I'll still be here. If one day you want to come back, I won't be going anywhere.
He didn't know what to say. In the end, he simply held her hand for a long time. Luca left. And just as he feared, time and distance pulled them apart. Messages became less frequent, calls became rarer. One day, they stopped talking altogether. Not because they wanted to, but because life had carried them in different directions. 3 years passed. Luca returned to the city on an autumn day, unsure if he would be able to find Evelyn again. He went back to their old cafe, his heart pounding. And then, he saw her. She was still sitting in the same spot by the window, still holding a small notebook. But this time, when she looked up and saw him, her eyes no longer held the sadness they once did. She smiled.
Have you found your answer?
Luca sat down across from her, his heart beating hard in his chest.
I think I have. I believe in destiny. And I think my fate has always been to find my way back here, to you.
Evelyn held his gaze for a long moment, then gently took his hand.
Then this time don't leave. Luca tightened his grip around her hand.
I won't go anywhere.
They sat there, as if the 3 years of distance had never happened. They didn't speak much, just quietly looked at each other, letting time piece together everything that had been left unfinished. Finally, Evelyn opened her notebook, flipping to a page that had slightly yellowed with time.
You know,
she said, her voice as warm as the first day they met.
I wrote about you a lot.
Luca glanced down at the pages. They were filled with hurried notes. Small stories about the times they had spent together, their conversations, the memories he had thought were lost. Evelyn looked up, her eyes shining in the soft cafe light.
I never stopped thinking about you, Luca.
Luca felt his heart swell. For the first time in a long while, he felt at peace. Outside the window, autumn remained as gentle as the day they first met. But this time, Luca knew he would never lose her again.